Hi there. Welcome to Tech Talk Weekly. I'm Bob from Creation Station. Just because we can, do you think we really should? I bet you get that movie reference. This is our weekly show where we talk about 2 to 3. Today we crammed in a couple extra fun stories that are out there in the tech and science news for us. And today I get to wrap up our summer series with our youth in the library with Shenika from North Regional Library. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are
What you
you?
been doing up there at the library over the summer?
I've been volunteering.
And just volunteering.
Yeah.
I think you need to explain that a little bit more for people because you do a lot of stuff there. You're not just like hanging out.
I've been volunteering. I've been shelf reading. I've been making sure that we put the books for friends instead of if it's been here for a while and it hasn't been checked out,
Yeah.
we would put it for the friends of the library, so anybody can buy the book and keep it and own it for themselves.
That's a really nice idea. It'll be great.
And I also help with arts and crafts.
You are in the children's area there. So yeah, there's a
Yes.
lot of arts. It's amazing how much arts and crafts prep you have to do, isn't it? Did you expect any of that before you started volunteering?
No, I did not expect.
Cutting hundreds of circles out. But we have some other fun things in the news. Let's throw up our screen here. The first thing that I hope everybody saw this report where Voyager actually is listening again. So you may have seen last weekend that there was a report came out from NASA admitting that somebody made a mistake and they turned the antenna on Voyager 2 off just a little bit, which meant it couldn't communicate with Earth.
I have a question.
Anything.
What is Voyager?
So Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 are two satellites that were launched long before you were even born, Shenika. They were sent back in the 70s. And they are way outside of the solar system right now. And they were the first spacecraft that we sent that went out to the outer planets. So some of these pictures that you grew up with of Saturn and Neptune and Uranus and Pluto and things, those were taken by these spacecraft as they whizzed on by and moving out into the solar system. And now they're out beyond our solar system and getting out in between the stars. So it's a really good question because it takes 18 hours for us to send a command out to Voyager 2 right now. And then it takes 18 hours for it to respond back to us to say, yes, it got it, or no, it didn't. So it's been a pretty crazy 2 weeks for NASA trying to figure out what's going to go wrong, what went wrong, how they could fix it. They managed to fix it. They have a weak signal right now. Between now and October, they will be able to fix that because in October, there's an automated system that will refocus the antenna on Earth. So we're going to get some more science out of this. We're going to get some things. But yeah, it's less than 2 degrees. So if you ever look at a full circle of the 360 degrees, just 2 little degrees, but that puts it off by tens of thousands of miles away from Earth because it's so far out. Unfortunately, it's only going to last for a couple more years before the power just dies on it because it's been going since the 70s. These things were meant to do that, but it's been a long time. And we're getting some really good science. It's really good to see this happening back again. And you didn't even know what Voyager was. That's okay. There's a lot of cool science stuff out there that we don't all know about. Like this story here. Just because we can wake these things up, I don't know. What do you think about waking up 46,000-year-old zombie worms, Shenika?
I think that's a terrible idea. You don't know what they have and stuff.
So you are right in more than one way. So the reason they did this, these were samples that were taken and they figured out that these are the oldest things we've ever been able to find and revive so far. But so what happens is these are like little microscopic worms. They thawed them out under a very controlled circumstances. They're not going to escape the lab. Nobody has to worry about that kind of stuff. They do know what they're doing with that. However, it's really interesting because these are organisms that usually only live for a couple of weeks at the most. And now, so they lived a little bit, they got frozen, they got flash frozen in the permafrost up near Russian territory, and have been frozen for 46,000 years. And then we wake them up again. And the very first thing they tried to do was go procreate. They wanted to have and make more worms, which is a pretty good signal that whatever these worms do to freeze and unfreeze, that how their bodies react to that means we can apply that to other things. Space travel, which is why I wanted to pair these two stories up. But yeah, I know, I get you. You know what's happening already up there in parts of the Arctic, in the North Arctic Circle there are things that are buried in the permafrost that have been buried for centuries, thousands of years, that are thawing out naturally without anyone around to control it. And we're going to have some of these, we don't know what diseases pop up again, and we hope that they're not going to affect humans. But that's another reason for this research, is to see what happens and why, just in case.
Okay.
I know. Yeah. I know. Yeah. This is not this is one of those, oh, that's really cool. Oh, this is really scary stories.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll be able to make it?
I mean, I don't know. I just don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. That's very much a thing of, yeah, we don't know. Yeah. I agree with you. Totally. I put a link to all these stories in the show notes, as always, so you can go in and find these, because this is one of the rare stories out on the internet where I'm going to encourage you to go read the comments. So I teach a class, robots around the library / house. And there's two things that do you understand, Shenika, what the difference in between a robot and an android is?
No.
Do you know what a droid is? Star Wars?
No.
Do you ever think of, like, you don't pay attention to Star Wars and stuff? Okay. No, that's okay. That's valid. I'm not. I've only seen 4 of the however many movies and shows and everything else that are out there now. So here's the issue. Here's the point of this article is, why are we continuing to try and build robots that look like us instead of building practical real robots? And the sneaky thing is, we are building them already like that. As this picture shows, if you've got a Roomba in your house, you've got a robot, and the robot does much better as a Roomba-shaped thing to vacuum your floor than a person-shaped thing that has to bend down and get under couches and move chairs and do all those things, because this kind of robot is meant to fit in those things. Have you used any of those kinds of robots?
No.
No? We're going to have to get you the robot that we've got, the Temi robot that's out in the library working. If you're listening to this show right now, that robot is out at the Lauderhill Central Park location. And then it's going, I forget where the next one is. We rotated around the library system. But then this next picture here shows, I think, a really good example. I'm going to blow it up so everybody can see. On the left is, if you wanted to build a robot, an android, which is android is any robot that is meant into a human shape. By the way, droid is copyrighted by George Lucas. So you have to say the full word android. But on the right are all the robots that are actually being used. And these are both Tesla robots. Notice they're not even trying to use humanoid robots in their assembly lines, because they can design a robot that does it much bigger, better, faster. Instead of having a wrist and fingers and only one way of moving that wrist around, Now you have a 6-jointed arm that can pick something up, put in that windshield, reach right in and around and come back up and hold on to things and do stuff. So do you care, Shenika, whether your robots look like you, or do you want them just to what?
I do care. Well, because I guess that's a bad thing if they look like me.
Is it?
Yeah,
Do you think
I
it's a
mean,
bad thing if they look like you?
because you don't know, they could use it against me. Like they could they could like be like a bad person.
Well, there's a thought behind there. Do you say thank you and stuff like that to Siri? Sorry, I just blew up anybody's phones. To any of the voice assistants?
Do I say
When you're
what?
asking an Echo or something,
Hmm.
when you're using those, do you say thank you?
Yeah.
Do you
No. Like, what do you mean by thank you? Like,
like when
thank you
I
for
say,
helping.
set an alarm for 4:35,
Hmm.
and the Echo says alarm set, and I'll say thank you
Hmm.
just out of habit because I'm just trying to be nice and just trying to treat it like it's a not
I
like a
don't
real
have
person,
Siri.
but try to be realistic in not teaching people to be jerks to machines.
Hmm.
Just like you treat all of your tools and machines nicely.
Hmm.
But so for you using a robot, do you feel like you're going to be more likely to use it if it looks like you? Or do you think you're going to be more likely to want to use one that doesn't look human?
I'd rather use one that doesn't look human.
So you like the idea of the Roombas and the
Hmm.
non things like
Hmm.
that? Yeah, and we talk about that. We talked about that about 2 months ago on the show when Amazon released the newest version of their Echo. And does it really matter whether it actually has a body or not? Like, do you think of your phone as a robot? Are you on Android or Apple?
I'm on Android.
Okay, so on Android, there's Google Voice built in that you could
Hmm.
use all the time, going back and forth. Do you? And it can do all those same things. It can't vacuum for you, but it can control the vacuum. So do you think of your phone as a robot? This is where we're getting into these blurry lines and trying to think of this. This is what some places call ambient computing, where
Hmm.
we're all trying to figure out what we're doing. Just to put a little thought in the back of your minds out there, everyone. Think about how you interact with your robots and what they look like, why you want them to look that way. Now we get the bad stories. This story here might affect Shanika and I a lot more than a lot of other people out there in the world, because living down here in South Florida, we're kind of concerned about hurricanes, although they are affecting almost all of the east coast of the United States now also. But there's something weird going on out there. Here's a chart of the surface temperatures. Have you been watching this at all, Shanika, and hearing stories about how hot the ocean's getting?
No, I have not.
Oh, good, good. In a way, that's good. You're not as terrified as I am,
Hmm.
not as worried. Um, but the surface temperature of the ocean is going up, period. Flat out, no denying that. We'll talk about that in another story. But uh, normally what that means is hurricanes start forming and they get stronger and it helps build up the effort uh, that the hurricane the amount of energy, I guess, is a much better way of saying it. The amount of energy that the hurricane can extract out of the ocean for all the warm water, and it starts building up that convection current. The hotter the water, the stronger the hurricanes are, the more frequent hurricanes go. But we're into August and we haven't had any. We've had 3 storms, one named hurricane that only made it as hurricane status for about 12 hours. So what's happening is we are getting wind shear from El Nino. We talked about this on the show a couple of months ago when El Nino first started up, that the El Nino effect means that you get more wind going across the top of a hurricane, which cuts off the cycling at the top. Have you seen those models before, Shenika? When you're watching the hurricane maps go by on the National Weather Service?
I mean, we haven't had a hurricane in a while, so
Man,
like
I
a
wish I
picture.
had your confidence in this. I wish I was able to. I work the Emergency Operations Center, so I remember sleeping on the floor. There's so many nights those years where we just had storm after storm after storm. Oh, I wish I could remember that like you do. It's nice. That's a nice thing. I see. This is why we have you on, because it's good to hear other nice, happier perspectives.
Mhm.
So what's going to happen out of this, our most likely issue, is surface water temperatures are going to go up. They're going to continue to go up. The wind shear is also going to happen. So we're going to get smaller, more violent storms, it looks like, over the next 12 to 24 months that will pop up quickly, spin up, do whatever damage they're going to do, and then fall apart. Right now, we're lucky that these are not going to be hitting the United States right now. There's nothing out there. There are not going to be these big, long hurricanes like Andrew, Katrina, Irma, Michael, that over the last few years, those big monster storms that just came across the Atlantic, built up a tremendous amount of steam, and then smashed into us. But it looks like there's going to be quick bursts of them, which brings us to a secondary story about El Nino, which dries out the rest of the world also. And so out in British Columbia, out in Western Canada right now, there are fires that have been burning, and all that smoke drifts across the continent, and it's caused all sorts of problems in the northeast of Canada and the United States. But I didn't realize this one little bit here on the bottom. Did you notice this in the article, Shenika, that they have, yes, all these horrible 900 fires out there burning right now. Insane stuff going on. Let me show you the list all the way down here in the bottom. How many more acres that are being burned? And if you look at that chart there, that bottom line is 2023, and that's only the first 6 months compared to years for all the other ones. Feels like the whole world's on fire sometimes, huh?
Mhm.
But now, one of the things that freaked me out a little bit about this was reading, and it was saying, oh, by the way, because of the permafrost, we talked about this earlier, and how some of the landscaping is, some of these fires can burrow underground and just smolder like your barbecue grill underground all winter long, and then start up again in the spring.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
what? Oh,
Yeah, I know. Tell me.
why don't we fix this?
So there's a couple of ways of fixing it. One is to bring down global warming, which is a very hard thing. And it's going to take us a lot of years to get back to where we used to be. So this is definitely one of those things that your generation is going to be working on and fixing, and hopefully fixing all the mistakes that we made. But also it's going to be a function of learning to live with new ideas and saying, okay, in this case, that's what one of these pictures is up here. They're going to need an extra, let's see if I can find it here, the number. They had to add $243 million to the budget and hire more than 100 permanent staff instead of temporary staff just to deal with the current fires. And then, like you said, what are you going to do to fix this? Well, one of the ways is to take some of these fires, like these here that are burning, and you have to do more than just cut a fire break. When you're cutting fire breaks, you're basically cutting a clear-cut area where the fire can't jump across. And instead of doing that, what they may have to do is start digging huge trenches and dig down so the fire can't get down into the ground and have fuel underground either to burn. So you're basically building huge construction projects around all of these individual fires. And again, let's go look at that chart, how bad this is getting. Yeah. I know. Stunned silence is exactly how it was in my office when I said, wait a minute, look at this chart.
Oh, like, oh,
Yeah, I know.
and this is all happening because of global warming.
Because of global warming, because climate changed. It's not changing. It's already changed. And water lack, either too much or too little water in various places, and the El Nino effect, which is a cyclical thing. So that cycle goes and goes. That is part of how climate change affects everything really fast on that. So that's one of those things everybody has to kind of pay attention to, is think about what you're going to be looking at going down the road, because this is going to be affecting all of us. You more than me, but all of us have to pitch in and help and do what we can. We're effectively out of time. I'm going to end the short here, but if you look in our show notes, there is a thing in there about the difference between pseudoscience and science that I'd like you to go read. It's a fun little story explaining how to actually check the facts on something like these that we just showed you, these 3 stories about hurricanes and fires and worms from 40,000 years ago, and how to tell the difference between real science and pseudoscience to know when you're looking at these stories. Thank you for being here and helping us wrap up, Shenika, on this.
Thank you for having me.
We have been celebrating all of our youth workers all summer long. Next week, we're going to start celebrating some of the other library pieces that helped make summer happen for everyone. So I do want everyone to tune in. If you don't watch us live, you can watch us as a podcast. Get us on your favorite podcast app, Broward Library Creation Station, that comes out to you. Or if there's a favorite library or librarian you'd like to see featured, Creation Station at broward.org comes right to me. And we'll see everybody next week. Have a great time.